Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Jennifer Wilson, and I am here at Leadership Lunch Chat with my good friend, Amy Vetter. Hi, Amy.
Hello, happy Friday.
You too. I don't know about you, but this has been kind of a longer week. On Wednesday, I thought tomorrow was Friday, and I sent out a lot of easy
That's the
messages.
worst.
And people were like, "Are we meeting Thursday or Friday?" I really, and one person wrote back and said, "I'm super sorry to break it to you, but today is Wednesday." So anyway, long week. But Amy and I wanted to first acknowledge that today is International Accounting Day. And so this is a celebration of accounting and the accounting profession internationally or globally. And we certainly feel super, you know, lucky or fortunate to have been in the accounting profession for our careers. We've dedicated most of our adult lives in some way or another to the profession itself. And we thought we would spend this whole leadership lunch chat just kind of talking about the impact of the accounting profession to the world. And then also that we would talk about the idea of like, what are all the cool things about being in this profession? What are the benefits? What are the positives? Because there is a lot of sort of, I don't know, negative conversation out there. It's natural for us as a profession to be kind of negative post busy seasons. That's been sort of a classic behavior, but there's also a lot of negativity surrounding um, talent and the pipeline and just a lot of kind of, my mom would call it "ain't it awful" about the profession, when in fact most of us who are a part of it know how awesome it is. And so we thought we'd spend this time talking about it. And we welcome you, by the way. And Steve, thank you for saying hello. We're glad you're here. We would love you to anybody who would like to chime in social with us and include your comments on thoughts on the impact of the profession and the positive aspects of it too as we go today. So, Amy, I'm going to hand it over to you to get started.
Yeah, so International Accounting Day, I think if I go back and think about it for myself, I think the profession in the US is actually still pretty young. Uh, it was really started in the late 1800s, and my grandfather was a CPA in the 1930s. And I actually did a lot of research for my books and some of my talks about my grandfather and the time that he was a CPA and what the CPA profession really came to be. And the stories I heard about the profession being young, when my grandfather died when I was really young, but then stories about being a CPA were passed on to me. And my grandfather and his family were immigrants. And so when you think about just the very beginnings of this profession and why it was so important for, so many of us, obviously in this country, we're still a young country, coming from other countries and trying to succeed. When he became a CPA, he was the first one in his family to go to college. The stories that I really heard about the work that he did was about lifting other immigrants up that, were also trying to be entrepreneurs and start, their dream in the United States. And so I really think about that from the international aspect of just how many people dream to come here and start businesses and needed people like my grandfather and others that could help decode the story of the financials. And that forever after has been our role, although we have tons of compliance work and deadline driven. We lift small businesses inside big corporations, people that don't understand the story behind the numbers that are happening, how to help them, how to grow, how to get out of trouble, all of those things. That is such important work that I don't think, in all the stories that go out there, it's very high level about, the drudgery of compliance, but there's so much advisory and advice work, and how many businesses have survived or grown because they've had a CPA, because they've had an accountant to be there next to them and support them and be there for questions and how to make those next steps in their business. And I do believe, over time, when, all this compliance bogged the profession down, with more and more regulation, and there's certainly not any end in sight to that, but with automation and where we are today, it really gets us back to that time of what my grandfather was doing, when the automation can lift this, and in our profession, taking advantage of technology is such a big thing. And I don't think people, when they go into the profession, realize they're going to become technologists at the same time, because they really have to understand that automation and how to lift the work so that they can spend time with the clients and really be next to their client as a strategic partner to help lift them and make sure that they can be successful.
Yes. And, you going back to your grandparents, the first accountant that I knew was my dad. But he was in the military. So, by the way, today's Veterans Day, and we want to acknowledge veterans everywhere, past and present, and really thank you for your service and for the freedoms that we enjoy to choose a career field of our liking, and to change it anytime we want, and all the freedoms we have because of our veterans. But my dad went to school for accounting, then he went into the Air Force, and he was always good with numbers. He did work, as it turns out, in talent. He moved troops and resources in something called Manpower, but which would be, by the way, have to have the name changed today for Power or something. But anyway, so like I and my brother Jack is an accountant, and certainly we have tons of friends. Amy and I share in this profession of wonderful people who have pursued this field really with the intent to make a difference in the world. And that's the thing. I think sometimes people think accounting is boring, or accounting is you have to be kind of a geek or a dork or math wizard or something. There's all these misnomers about accounting. And the truth of it is, there's a ton of pathways. As Steve here said, it's a very diverse field. You can go in a lot of different directions with it. A great major, because it can springboard to almost anything after that. And it offers this big opportunity, if you go into public accounting, to make a difference for clients, and also to develop talent and to innovate technologically. Anybody who's been in public accounting over the course of the last 3 decades, any part of the last 3 decades, has had a lot of automation experience, a lot of technology implementation experience, a lot of workflow and efficiency and lean kind of activities that most people wouldn't put inside their mental picture of accounting, that it's a technology forward profession and we're constantly seeking ways to use it. But in industry, all sorts of opportunities to learn the business. It's the language of the business that you're in, and you're the translator, and so that's super cool from a business and industry perspective. Certainly, we've had wonderful accounting instructors out there making a huge difference in the lives of other accountants. Government accountants keep our government going and keep our our profession and our businesses in the country honest. I mean, there's just so forensics is another really super cool field of accounting, and valuations to figure out how to help transition wealth and property and businesses. And it's just like endless options, endless pathways. And that isn't just in the US, it's global. I mean, there's all this opportunity and all this need. And I just think it's a wonderful profession. I'm happy we have this day to celebrate it. Uh-oh, you're muted, maybe.
Sorry about that. So I think what's important too is all of the like Megan's saying on here, how many different roles she's had in her career. I think so many times we think of it as one thing. Like, I know as soon as I meet someone new and tell them I'm a CPA, they're like asking me tax questions, and I'm not a tax accountant. But there's an assumption of, that's what CPAs do. And instead of realizing how many different functions accountants operate in, from, the traditional, the tax and audit, but there's also just a myriad of advisory type services. And within corporations, all the internal corporate departments that help inform the business on how it's doing. And then there's the roles of, utilizing that skill as you pivot in your career as well. But understanding the numbers is, a language that I think is its own unique thing for accountants, that they understand it and they can explain it. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is how heartfelt accountants are. We work with so many firms and people in those firms, and know the faces of, when we say, there's thousands and thousands of accountants, we can picture the faces of those accountants. And the pureness of just wanting to help, which some of it has gotten in our profession's way of, there's no cutoff, there's no boundaries, and really creating those boundaries. But it derived from just wanting to help. And any accountant that I find that's even struggling with boundaries, a lot of times it's because they have this need to help. They have a hard time saying no. They want to see whoever they're working with to improve and be able to get what they need. And so I think we forget just the humanness behind the profession when we're talking about, so many professions are dealing with pipeline issues. This is not the only profession dealing with it right now. But what we forget are the human side of the profession, and the drive to help business, the drive to help people, the drive to help personal initiatives. When you believe in sustainability, when you believe in, or you're trying to protect people from cybersecurity attacks and all of this other work that accountants do that you don't even realize are out there because people are passionate to protect businesses.
Yeah. I've told the story before, Amy, at Convergence, we do leadership work, and there are times when we, through the 24 years we've been in business, where our team has sort of wondered, should we be doing this leadership work with sixth graders or with, middle schoolers, or, are we in the right spot in the accounting profession? Is that enough, like, social impact? And at one point when we were kind of having that conversation, I mentioned it to my mother, who was, in her like probably late 80s or something at the time. And she, I didn't really think she understood what I did. She sometimes told people she works with computers, because I always had one in my lap. But anyway, she said, well, I know why you're in accounting. You have to stay in accounting. And I said, why? And she said, because accountants are the guardians of the world's economy. They keep the world's economy honest, and they keep it safe, and they keep it secure, and they guard it. And you're right where you're supposed to be, creating leadership and management skills in the guardians of the world's economy. And I brought that back to my team, and we were all like, wow, we are up to something huge, which is, you might say, stupid that we didn't get it on our own. But I thought it was pretty profound for her to say that. And I credit her with, really causing us to double down. We stopped. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a conversation since, let's put it that way. We've never soul searched on that matter since, because it's valid. It feels valid to us that the accounting profession is the guardians of the world's economy. And And because of that, it's endless in its options and endless in its need. Like there's never this moment where it's like, well, the economy is poor, so we don't need any accounting. That's you need accounting most in hard times. You know what I mean? Like there's
and even in things that are new, like blockchain, that when they came to be, like who gets turned to when something like that happens? Accountants, because they're still trying to figure out whether it's a different type of currency or something new like that. Someone's got to figure out, how do we actually translate this? What's the story, the language behind it, and how do you report it? Because there's no transaction in the world that can happen without a back and forth, and a story and an explanation and a benefit or a non-benefit, but it's all got to be reported. It's all got to have that story. And I remember being in the very beginnings of the blockchain discussions, and when AICPA brought all the people together that were kind of looking into it from a new perspective, and everyone just trying to figure it out. And it's like you get all those minds together from all these different backgrounds, and it's so exciting. And now we have generative AI. And what are we trying to do? All the accountants are trying to figure it out. Like, how do we protect people in this new world of AI and protect the financial information, and and people not get harmed? And how do people benefit from it as well? And where is the privacy and security around it? And that's the minds of the accountant, of trying to figure out how that guardianship, the protector of the people, so that there is no harm, that there's good in the business economy, and people will benefit.
Well, and then you think about like carbon credits and ESG and crypto, and I mean the list of sort of new innovations that accounting is at the leading edge of, and we're business partners with whoever is in the endeavor innovating. Accounting is always in there in lockstep, trying to say, what's the ripple on this thing, and how do we protect it, but also how can we capitalize?
How do we benefit from it? And I don't think people, I think going back to what you said in the beginning, there's this image of accountants at a desk and never looking up, but it's that expertise and knowledge that in the hardest times, or when PPP happened, right? Who does everyone go to? Is accountants, which is what part of what caused our pipeline issue, because they got drowned out because they were so passionate to try to help every business survive during that time frame and know how to get those benefits back. But the accountants were the only ones that could decode that and to figure it out, and to help small business owners and guide them through that. They are the first line of defense many times when we've got all these new things that happen in the world and things you cannot control. And so just changing that perspective of what this profession is, and the enormity of it, and the international community of it now, of business being international business, and the collaboration that happens between firms in all different countries, really makes this so much more than I think what people picture.
Yeah. Well, and Steve's out here saying, don't forget that we're actually cool and we have hobbies. And, like we're people too. And you talked about the heart-centered part of the profession. And I know that that's one of the reasons you and I both have built our career there, because the people are good. I know there's the occasional bad apple, but for the most part, it's, it's really a culturally centered, ethical, caring, loving, even profession. And, that makes it really great. And the people are cool, and they do have wonderful hobbies, and interests outside of the profession that they bring into their lives as service providers or leaders of organizations or whatever it is. And it can be a profession where you are well-rounded. This whole idea that I have to be chained to my desk, or, that it's this overwhelming effort. All of that stuff, that this job is hard stuff, we create that with our business models. We've created some weird stuff about our the way that we work, and we kind of, I think, and at least I'm going to call it the legacy profession, has enjoyed sort of the red badge of courage of this, toiling during busy season thing that we do. And that's about our business model. And you could say, no, Jennifer, it's about compression and deadlines. Yeah, but you can manage the business. You can beef up the staff. You can change the leverage model. You can put all kinds of people getting client data in. You can decide which clients you're going to extend or not, because you put enough resource on it, you'll get all the client information you need to file on time. You get to choose these business model constructs. You can say yes, less. You can say no, more. You can charge more. You can pay more. There's all this stuff we could do that would change the model and change the way it looks. And so that's on the bright side, that's what's possible. It is possible to build any kind of a firm or any kind of a business that you want with this accounting need that there is in the marketplace. And you get to choose the lifestyle that you want, and that you're going to provide the culture and lifestyle that you're going to provide to your people. It really isn't something that is mandatory and that we have to inherit from our forefathers and mothers and have kind of a grindy business. It's not necessary. That's not what's required. Now, sometimes in emergencies, like the national emergency we had in the pandemic, we grind.
Yeah. Well, and I would also say that anybody that goes into this profession, it's not supposed to be easy. That's what makes it exciting. Like, if it's not an easy job, like, this isn't, meant to be, this is meant to solve the most critical issues in the economy for businesses. And that's what makes it constantly interesting. And so you don't have to feel like, oh, well, this is going to be too hard. Well, that certainly never deterred me from going into the profession because it was too hard. It was more, how I wanted to craft the way I wanted to live my life. And that was up to me to shift that. Right. But the way that we look at it, it's the challenge of it is what makes it exciting. And it's what keeps people in it and keeps people striving to want to help more. That there's always something new to learn, and there's always another way to pivot.
Yes. And improve, It's all about improvement
and learn.
And working smarter. And I love all those aspects. So great point. We are way past time. So great subject, because it ripped by, and we just barely scratched the surface, honestly, on all the wonderful aspects of accounting. But today, on International Accounting Day, we thank everybody in the accounting profession for choosing it, and encourage you to share some of this good news, some of these bright spots and ideas with others. Yes. Stop and look at how you're telling the story of this profession, and turn around and tell it to 5 other people, and tell it in a hopeful and positive, empowered, difference-making way, please. It'll make a huge difference for all of us. If nothing else, when you tell the story, it feels good, doesn't it, Amy?
Yes.
When you tell it from this angle. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I think we have a couple of weeks off coming up. I'm not positive of that, but I'm pretty sure the rest of November, perhaps, because we have a holiday Thursday, that thing called Thanksgiving here in the U.S. But we have a couple of other conflicts coming up. And so I think we're back together in early December. And we'll see you all then. If you have any ideas for topics you'd like to cover in Leadership Lunch Chat, tell Amy and I in social. We're happy to hear them. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Goodbye, Amy.
Bye.